Hello and welcome to another episode of the djproject Criterion Collection. And here we're going to talk about Spine 611, Being John Malkovich, directed by Spike Jonze, 1999. Malkovich. Okay, I'm not going to do that for the whole thing. This was one of those few titles that appeared on the collection that I've actually seen before, and I actually did see this in the theater. I was in high school at the time, and I really enjoyed it. It was it was easily right up my alley before I had even realized it. Just the surreal moments, the cleverness of the construct, what it touched on. So yeah, I definitely liked the film. It was a title that I knew I wanted to add onto the shelf, but I was always looking for a better edition for it. Not necessarily, I wasn't expecting it was going to be on the Criterion Collection. It's just that I was just hoping for like a better transfer and so forth. And actually, I think the initial DVD release was okay, but I guess I was just sort of holding it off or waiting for the right time. And sure enough, the right time was in 2011. I think that's when it first was issued. Oh, 2012. That's when it came out. So I was like, okay, I'm definitely getting this. There's no hesitation whatsoever. And actually, it was 13 years since I last saw it. And it's one of those things where there are some films that you liked as a teenager, but then when you watch it when you're a little bit older, you either go, wow, I like it even more, or I don't really like it all that much. And surprisingly, I still end up liking it, even though I've seen plenty more films that deal with or have that sort of strange construction to them, or that strange execution, strange in a good way, not in a bad way, and deals with some of the things that Being John Malkovich dealt with. It still holds up. And the thing that I noticed, and I think I noticed this at the time when I first saw it too, but I also remember how unlikable all the characters are. All the characters in it are assholes, but in different ways. There's not really a likable person in there. I think with the one exception of Dr. Lester, played by Orson Bean. But even then, there's some weird parts to him. He's there's frankness of sex in what he talks about. But even then, he comes off in the end a little bit more likable. But yeah, like everybody's an asshole in this. But I think that's maybe part of the point, or it's not. This is one of those things where you can get away with character unlikability because everything else about it works. I think if the scheme of it doesn't work, then it's just not going to be interesting. By the way, this is a title that has been around for quite a while, so I don't have to go too much into what it is, but just a very, very brief recap. It's a puppeteer played by John Cusack he needs to get a job in order to support his wife, played by Cameron Diaz, going against type. But anyway, he tries to find a job to support himself, and he ends up being a file clerk. And in his office, it's a very unusual office. It's a 7.5 floor of a building, so everything is just so he has to constantly walk around like that. But then he also meets a co-worker who he instantly falls in love. He instantly falls in love with her, even though she does not give him the time of day at all. Is clearly not interested at all, and says it every which way to him, but he still he still falls for her and such. But one day, while at work, he encounters this strange door. What's this door doing here? He walks inside. He finds out that this door takes him inside the mind of John Malkovich. And so everything that he experiences, or anything that Malkovich experiences, he indirectly experiences just because he's inside his head. This is a nice little commentary on the idea of Cartesian theater. If you look at Descartes' conclusions, particularly in the relation between mind and body, because it's a very strict dualism, then the question is, okay, how exactly do the two worlds fit? And so this is a little commentary on that. So then it becomes then turns into a business exploit between him and fellow co-worker, played by Catherine Keener. And it also provides the means of a new experience on the part of his wife, who feels like she's more complete as a man. So there's another issue that's addressed, the whole issue of identity, particularly sexual identity, and it just already goes into very weird, convoluted areas, but in a very entertaining and satisfying and twisted and perverse way that can only be done by Charlie Kaufman as writer. Since then, I've come to really enjoy his work in two other respects. One is I've mentioned a lot with Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, and also another film that Spike Jonze would direct, that would be Adaptation. I haven't seen Cinedoce New York, which was actually a film that he finally was able to direct. And I have a feeling that I would like some aspects of it, or that there may be a lot to like about that film. So I want to check that out soon. Hopefully as soon as I'm done with all of these. Hint, hint. But anyways, so it's one of those films that I feel like it helped plant some seeds into what I would explore in the future, and which made going back to the film more than a decade later all the more satisfying, because because in 1999 my film viewing, while it was fairly diverse, it wasn't extensive. It certainly didn't have the breadth and the depth that I had when I revisited in 2012. So it's one of those things where, because I've seen a lot more films and I was aware of a lot more directors, I was able to make a lot more connections, and I was able to get a lot more the second time around than I did in the first. I certainly liked it the first time around, but I was able to get more out of it when I reviewed it again. So I was able to get a lot more jokes, or get a lot more ideas, and I was sensitive to certain things now than I was in 1999. So in a way, it showed an interesting. It showed me where I was. Derek Power in 1999 was different than Derek Power in 2012. Aside from the obvious that there's a 13-year difference, but so it was a great. It's a great little revisit, as it were, of my my teenage side and such. So, but yeah, it's so yeah, Malkovich.